This is a Step Beyond the Fire podcast. My name is Cully. I'm a land manager and a wildlife biologist here in my home state of Florida. I invite you to join me on a journey as I seek to document the little-known stories told by those who use fire for the benefit of the land, also known as prescribed fire. So come on, let's head into the field and meet the people where the flame ends and new life begins. If you're a private landowner in the state of Florida and you're looking for help with your forest management needs, I encourage you to reach out to my good friend Scott Crosby, owner of Crosby Forestry and GIS Services, LLC. Check out his website at crosbyforestry.com. He's got 33 years of forestry experience, and he'll help you turn your land into forests and forest into cash with a stewardship ethic. Check him out today. Welcome back to another episode of A Step Beyond the Fire podcast. I would like to welcome Roger Young to the show. Director Young is the current executive director for the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, which is the statewide agency responsible for managing fish and wildlife resources for all of Florida that employs over 3,000 people. Director Young has over 27 years of experience in natural resource law enforcement, and he's also a graduate of the FBI National Academy, the National Association of Conservation Law Enforcement Chiefs Academy, and the Florida Department of Law Enforcement Senior Leadership Program. Thank you for being here today, Roger. I really appreciate it, and welcome to the show.
Thanks, Clay. Appreciate you having me. It is an honor and a privilege to be here representing the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, and look forward to speaking about some of my experiences that I've had in my 29 years of conservation work and leadership through. And just appreciate the honor and opportunity to talk to everybody.
Well, thanks again. And I'll jump right into the questions I got here for you. Would you mind telling us a little bit more kind of about your background in law enforcement and how you got into this line of work?
Sure thing. So I've been with the FWC for 28, going on 29 years now, and it started back in 1995. Went to Florida State, got my degree in social science with an emphasis in environmental studies. I knew I wanted to have a career dedicated to conservation. Somehow really wanted to be a biologist, but frankly, the whole chemistry 2 thing, I tried that twice and it wasn't my thing. So I kind of started down another thought process and route, and my path led me to conservation law enforcement, and that was something near and dear that I always wanted to try. The hardest part was just getting in. I mean, I think the selection process for being a conservation officer in the state of Florida has always been tremendously challenging. It's we maintain a large number of applicants every year, and even in '95, it was probably I don't want to say it was more than it is now, but it's very selective going in. So just very fortunate to have an opportunity to get started with the agency back in the day. Kind of funny story, just taking another step back and how I got into that realm. I like I said, I graduated in '93 from FSU with my degree. Interviewed with the Department of Environmental Protection and a bunch of other state agencies for environmental jobs, and just didn't have any experience at that point. So I moved down to the Keys. I was working on a fishing boat, and I was waiting tables at a restaurant in the evening, and then ended up working at a seafood house. I had a lot of odd jobs, and I had been dating my wife for a while, and her dad was with Metro-Dade Police Department, and so when I went to tell him that, hey, listen, we're getting serious, I want to marry your daughter, and he said, that's great. What are you going to do with your life? You need a real job, son. So it worked out, and with his help and his guidance, because he asked me if I wanted to work for Metro-Dade, and I was like, well, not particularly, but I'm interested in law enforcement, but really conservation law enforcement. And so he kind of geared me to some connections with the agency back in the day, which helped me guide my path to get hired on with the what was then called the Marine Patrol, but is now known as the FWC Division of Law Enforcement. So just really fortunate and blessed to start my career. I did my first year in Taylor County And then from there, did a year and transferred down to Pinellas County, where I spent 25 of the 27 years that I've had. Worked in the Tampa office for a long time, then promoted through the ranks. I've held every rank in our conservation division, except for I never did the captive wildlife investigator, and I went from major to colonel in the last 2 years. So I spent the last 2 years as the colonel of the FWC's Division of Law Enforcement, which is the largest law enforcement conservation agency in the nation. So pretty daunting
impressive
task and prestigious opportunity. So I was proud for that.
Yeah, that's an incredible story. And this actually leads pretty well into the next question because, in an obvious context, fish and wildlife law is quite a bit different than other types of law enforcement. And I'm just curious, like, what does success normally look like for you guys, that are involved in this type of conservation work day to day? What does that normally look like for y'all?
No, that's a great question. And, success, when I got into the leadership ranks, I would always tell the officers to not gauge success by what you see daily, right? I mean, and because it's hard to quantify, right? Our job is really to, in the public service and the wholeness of what we do, is to educate and to seek compliance in our rules and regulations. So, typically on any given day when we're doing conservation checks and inspections, if people aren't violating law, that could be deemed a success for us because we have voluntary compliance. So, there's a couple of examples where we'll use. I like to use so back in the day we had that Gasparilla Pirate event in Tampa where it was just a drunk fest, a lot of intoxicated operators on the water.
I've seen that on the news a lot.
Yeah. So, and we used to poll about when we first started the really hardcore kind of enforcement efforts at that event. It wouldn't be uncommon for us to arrest 30 voting under the influence operators in the course of a night or an 8 hours or 6 hour span. So, but it got to the point where, that message got out, and about 2 or 3 years after starting those efforts, I think we had 1 or 2, which to me, you talk about gauging success. It was a great success because what we got a lot of designated operators, so, that message is resonating and ultimately keeping the public safe. So that is one way to measure, success. Another one is, obviously, we did a lot of work with the nesting shorebirds, and, we have a lot of conflict with that on the beaches. And, when we can have a year where we have those visitors or residents come to expect our presence and our support, and help us educate the public that are going to be there to have successful nesting efforts on the beach, is another one that I always thought was, it's challenging because, you would think, well, why do we need officers to help enforce, shorebird nesting? Well, it's a high conflict area, right? It's usually in April, May, a lot of spring breakers. There's a lot of activity on the beach, but those shorebirds need that time and place to be able to nest. And it's important for the survival of their species. So, a highly conflicting kind of topic, but still, I think if we can get garner the appreciation and support of the public that's there and the visitors too, because once you explain it to them, people get kind of bought in and get passionate about it and want to try to help. And I think that's another area we've been really successful in trying to get people on our side to kind of help us do those efforts. And that's just, one of a couple of examples that we use and like to say that, we don't like to say we measure success upon like convictions or arrests, or that's really not what it's all about. It's all about helping species, and it's all about helping the environment. And while that may be hard to quantify in some areas, and it's also about keeping people safe. There are examples out there where you can pinpoint our conservation and law enforcement efforts or do a great job to help, the different resources that are out there.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Once one person learns about, it's those day-to-day interactions between the officer and the individual, and then the word spreads to somebody else and then somebody else. And I always noticed that about you guys, having been previously within FWC. there's a lot of good opportunities there to engage with people, talk about important topics, and also say, hey, if let your friends know about this. And
That's
there's
right.
other ways that we
Yeah.
can address this and spread the word, which is
Yeah.
really what conservation is all about. I mean, we kind of
That's
do
right.
that across the board too. And we talk a lot about that. That's kind of this podcast, the message that we try to give across to folks is how, you know, conservation is such a multifaceted thing. And I think it's great to have you here because you've got this great perspective from your leadership level that, we can share more and get more people
Hmm.
interested in what's going on. All these.
I like to say there's two things, about what we do. One, it's very complex. We have so many issues that are complex and has a lot of passionate people on both sides, and it's not boring. It seems like every day or every week we come across some issue that is, you just scratch your head. It's like, wow, I never thought I'd hear that, but that's happening right now. So we just kind of be braced and prepared for whatever comes next and try to handle it the best we can.
Well, speaking of those, the one-off things that kind of come out of left field, is there a memory or two that stands out for you as kind of like a turning point in your career or something major that happened?
Yeah. So there's a couple, I would say. One I kind of mentioned it earlier. For me, for my career, just getting hired, just getting started was such a hard part of the process and getting through the academy. So I kind of like to think that it's that struggle, and kind of I always kept that with me of how hard it is to get hired and what a privilege it is to be able to work for the FWC. And once I kind of got through the academy and got out, got on my own, it's always tried to remember that, is the struggle that it took to get the job and how hard I wanted to keep working to keep it. Obviously, there's a lot of people that are trying to come to work for us, which is a great thing. I mean, that's a great issue or problem to have. But, I always wanted to make sure that, I kind of kept that as the forefront of my mind of, how thankful I am to be able to do what I do. Because, it is, while I say in one breath that we're the largest conservation agency in the nation, but when we're talking about law enforcement, there's still only about 860 now. We just the last 2 years we've been able to add to it, but there's 860 officers statewide, which isn't talk about, there's a lot of counties in the state of Florida, and there's a lot of land to patrol, and there's a lot of waterways to patrol. So that number spreads pretty thin when you start talking about shift work, weekends, holidays, and everything else. So there's not a lot of us out there, and what a privilege it is to have and to be able to do this job. So, but as far as other failures and learning lessons, I would like to think from the leadership standpoint too, is to, just to try to help people. I mean, you're always going to have those struggles, and I used to have, some of the mentors that I had above me when I was like on a frontline supervisory level, that you'd have peers or employees below you that would fall astray or do things to get in trouble, and it's you and I was always reminded as, listen, you set the standard and you expect to hold that standard. But you can't there's no way that everybody is always going to hold to that standard, right? So there's going to be people that disappoint you, and there's going to be people that are going to fail, and that's okay as long as you take care of it the right way and move on. But just not to get too, listen, I'm a people person. I kind of attach to people. So I like to believe in them, but when it doesn't work out and things don't always go right, because listen, I'll be the first one to admit, we're not a perfect agency. We have a lot of, humans that work for us, and, we're not all perfect. And, I like to say, kind of one of my sayings is, as long as we're making progress to get better every day, that's what we strive for. So, but within that imperfection is we have people that stray and do things that, that aren't kind of up to par with what we would expect. And, that is always a letdown, right? Because we always like to think that we hold the bar so high. But in telling other supervisors not to get too down when people are going to fail us, right? I mean, that's going to happen. People are going to make mistakes. Let's do what we can to help them if we can, help them learn, help them get better, and not take it personally when our own people don't kind of live up to the standard that we've held for ourselves. So that's one lesson that's another lesson that that I've learned through the years, to not take things so personal and just try to help people the best we can and move on.
Yeah, that's that's a good point, because I said this not too long ago, but a professor that I had back in college when I was getting my wildlife degree, he says, wildlife management is primarily people management. And if you learn how to work with people well, you'll do well. And
That's right.
That statement really stuck with me over the years, just because of the fact that, FWC's mission statement is managing fish and wildlife resources for their long-term well-being and the benefit of people. So you introduce this element in there where, whether it's, agency employees interacting with people day to day out in the field and explaining maybe the latest rules and regulations, or maybe there's that opportunity, like if there's somebody harvests a buck and it's maybe just a half inch, to under the limit, how that conversation goes sets the tone with how people view the agency, and how those officers are able to handle that. So I think I'm sure anybody who's listening can identify with the fact that, hey, they've had an interaction with a law enforcement officer wherever it was out in the field. Right. If they're out hunting or out fishing, occasionally that does happen. So how those things unfold can really shape and mold people's idea of how the people are doing and what the agency's really like.
That's right. And we always like to say too is, it's about the interactions, right? Whichever activity they're taking part in, whether they're hunting, fishing, whatever, I always like to tell people just to remember what you're doing. We're public servants. We're here to help and educate people. Yeah. Try to make every interaction a positive one, despite what you're faced with, right? So there's going to be people poaching. We're going to catch people doing, night hunting and all these different things. And listen, we just can't hold people personally accountable for that. We can hold them accountable for the rules and regulations, but don't take it personal and don't make it a personal thing, and treat people with respect and professionally, no matter what they're doing, in hopes of they will understand and be educated about what violations they've committed or crimes they've committed, and they can learn from that and help educate others not to do that moving forward. So
for sure. So you've touched on this already a little bit, and if you want to add anything to this too, that's great. So we talked about success, but you've also mentioned some failures, or maybe some apparent failures. But how has a failure or an apparent failure in life set you up for success at a later time?
So that's another great question. And a lot of it's just learning about myself, right? Learning about how I react to certain things, and learning that, like we mentioned, when people don't hold up to the standard we expect or think they're going to, how do we react to that? And how do we react to that in front of others? And I think for me professionally, from the leadership standpoint of, it is so important to make sure that we are able to, manage expectations of everybody, treat everybody, with that respect internally as well, and understand that, not everybody's the same, right? So we have that, what we call situational leadership, where you've got maybe someone who's been with the agency for 25 years. Obviously, their level of supervision is going to be a little different than the one that just came on. The one that just came on is going to lead probably not a lot of motivation or energy. They're going to need a lot of educating because they just don't know the one that's been on a long time. They're going to have the wealth of knowledge, but they might be towards their end of the career and need a little bit of boost, motivation, or energy, inflected into their daily routine. So just from my standpoint, the success of being able to, probably the most successful thing for me is seeing people that I've supervised for a long time succeed beyond, my imagination from them from the beginning, right? So, having been now with this level as the executive director, having, I feel like I've been a part of so many people's careers early on, and watching them go on to do great things and make great cases and be outstanding conservation officers through, the work that they're doing in the community and in the field, and, with hunter education and different, trends that are developing and changing in the environment today in Florida, seeing that development in them, as well as promoting through the agency, I think for me is what success is all about, right? Mm-hmm. So, like I said, we've got a lot of complex issues that are facing Florida, but it's about the people that work here at FWC that care so much about our state and our resources and the people, and watching them be successful. For me, I can sit back literally and just feel proud of the agency when I see those great things happen. And that's to me what success is all about, is that we've created a culture here that we can have people flourish and shine and do great conservation work and help our people in the state and help our resources and do great things and just kind of feel good about that. I think that's for me ultimately what I view kind of success as. It's not necessarily a specific species or anything. It's just kind of, just because we're so complex and we do so many different things, it would be hard to measure that just based on one, resource success story. So for me, it's all about the people.
For sure. Yeah. I have been learning some lessons lately about, and I've been reading some things about going through difficult experiences, and how to try to reframe my thinking a little bit when I'm going through something difficult, and that instead of calling it a cross to bear, or this thing that I'm dealing with that's so difficult, mm-hmm. It's an opportunity, and it's an opportunity for growth.
That's right.
Whether FWC is dealing with tegus down in Babcock Webb, or, an escape prescribed burn that happened years ago, there's opportunities in there. And I've seen that a lot. Now on the outside looking in, I see there's all these opportunities that you guys are turning into, ways and to improve and grow. And not only that, grow people that are working for you too.
Yep. No, that's a great point. And I had another quick example of that, of an opportunity. It was a week into my new job here as executive director when we got notified that we had a positive CWD case in Holmes County.
Geez. Yeah,
and that was, for me, I was almost, I was for a little bit, I was like, this is not happening, right? This is what we've been fearful of for so long as an agency. And we've got plans and protocols and procedures. And it kind of took me a little bit to be like, all right, we're going to be okay. We've got a plan for this. But being the new executive director in this role, for me, I was in the very first week getting that phone call. It was the Friday of the first week officially that I took this role that happened. And I was like,
so it was your fault, in other words.
Yeah. So it was on me. It was 100% on me. So, I mean, and that was tough. That was very tough. That was a challenge. And that was one of those situations where, like, all right, I need all hands on deck and I need help. We need to work together. Let's get the protocols out. Let's start, communicating with our landowners and our processors. And, I got a lot of great phone calls from support from other states that had just gone through that, with some great advice on how to handle that. So it was really helpful. And it was more of that, that conservation community kind of reached out to us, to kind of help. And it's funny or it's not funny, but, I noticed just today, I think we got noticed that, Kentucky for the first time got notified that they're now joining the ranks, unfortunately, of a CWD positive state. So just reaching out to them and, kind of, letting them know that it's going to be okay. And that, it's part of the landscape that we're living with in the country today, is these states. I think they're the 32nd state, if I'm not mistaken, that has now positive CWD in their state. So, and the effects and the ramifications that go with that as well. So it's just, like I said, it's a changing landscape in conservation. But that was definitely one of those moments that was challenging. You talk about that opportunity to learn, but I learned a lot about the people around me really quick that first week, mm-hmm. And just proud to say that they were ready to roll their sleeves up and get to work and do the right thing. So it was one of those moments for sure.
Yeah, boy, that is, because lately I've been trying to not call things difficulties, so that's quite an opportunity. That's how I've been trying to reframe things.
It was quite the opportunity for sure.
Yeah. So, wow. Well, what a first week, boy. And so, along those lines, leadership on your level has these wide-ranging implications for the citizens of Florida and for all the employees that work for the agency alike. Would you mind sharing with us your philosophy on leadership?
Yeah, so that for me is an easy one. So I'm all about, and again, I hate to kind of harp on the same thing but it's about the people that work here.
Sure.
I want to hear the voices and the concerns and the ideas from those that are in the field actually doing the job. And I know it's a little bit of a kind of contradictory statement because I'm here at headquarters, but I spent 25 years of my career in the field, and I've only spent the last 2 years here at headquarters in an executive level position. And I think that experience for me was extremely valuable in helping learn what our agency needs, how we interact and relate to the public, and how we educate and interact with our communities to ensure that we're successful in conservation. And I bring that with me to this position here as executive director with a reminder to everybody here at headquarters is, hey, listen, I know we're making these decisions, but we're not making them in a vacuum. The decisions that we make every day affect the over 2,000 FWC employees that we have across the state. And we need to make sure that we are keeping their best interests and thoughts in mind when we're doing what we do to ensure that we're creating that culture that's gonna be giving back to those people that are doing the job every day. So for me, it's all about hearing the voices, that leadership out in the field and making sure that we're staying in touch with the conservationists across the agency on a daily basis to ensure that we're doing what's right for them.
I think that's very valuable that you have so much experience of being actually, because it's a pretty common thing in government to have like this big sort of disconnect between what's going on up here and what's going on with the people who are out there standing in the mud, what they're dealing with. But
yep.
I think that was I was really happy to hear when you got this promotion to this job because you really understand what people are dealing with from, in the day to day and what it actually looks like to be an officer out in the field and talking with the public and working through really difficult issues. Like I've seen, one big hot topic that when I was in Ocala, and I talk about this a lot on the podcast, Ocala keeps coming up because of my time I spent there. But when the deer dog hunting, there was some regulations and things that they were going to be changing a little bit. There was an officer there he was a captain, and I forgot what his name is, but I was so impressed by his leadership because there was a lot of like angry people in the crowd, and he straightened them out, man. He was like, this is the message, and you guys better settle down or else.
Yeah, that's right.
It was, I had never seen anything like that, but talk about conflict resolution, that right there, man, he could teach.
And we seem to get more and more of that lately. Our commission meetings seem to be more and more, I don't want to say controversial, that's not quite the right word, but the topics that we have elicits a lot of passion, like I said, on both sides. I mean, we have a lot of people that are on both sides of our invasive plant management issues. We've got a lot of people, obviously, in 2015, we did a bear hunt. We've got a lot of people now pushing for one. We still have a lot of people that are opposed to it. We're trying to talk about the management of it and what the future looks like for Florida. We're hearing from a lot of different sides. The management of different lands, there's the whole Lake Okeechobee issue, the Everglades restoration stuff. So we've got so many different, passionate user groups on all these different things that, our commission meetings now, when we have, public comment, often solicits a lot of passion and, kind of heated energy, which is, it's tough for us because we're stuck in the middle and we're really trying to do the right thing, right? We're trying to listen to everybody. We're trying to get everybody's thought process, but we have to look at the science and the science-based, make those science-based decisions. But we've also got to kind of pay attention to the social aspect of it too. And where do those roads cross, and where do we do what's right for the environment and the people of Florida? That's the hard part is to kind of mend those two a little bit. And, it's a challenging job to do that, but we want to hear people's voice, but sometimes, like you said, you get in those meetings and they all get together and they get heated, and it's a tough place to be on the other side of the table when they're just letting you know how passionate they are about certain things. So
no doubt. Well, there's never going to be. I don't think there's ever going to be a shortage of passionate people about conservation here in this state, because
nope.
we went through such a massive. Well, there's this land use change that's continually kind of occurring here, and
Right.
a lot of unique natural resource concerns and issues. And I'll certainly look forward to seeing how things progress on your level, into the future. And I hope it's a happy, joyous experience for you.
I hope so too.
Yeah. So kind of wrapping things up here, I just was curious if there's anything been on your mind lately that you'd like to share with us before we sign off.
Yeah, just it's for me. It's just the change in the environment in Florida. With the continued pressures that we feel throughout the state. The population increases. A lot that I'm concerned about is the future of our conservationists. With the economic upticks and everything being so much more expensive, and land being less affordable in Florida. I'm concerned about how are we going to attract conservationists to come to work for FWC in the future. One thing that I've just recently done is, we've normally had the structure in the executive office of the executive director, and then I had an assistant. Well, I've kind of broken that into two roles to have an assistant executive director who's going to focus on our business side of the house to do all we can to try to garner like a career development plan for our employees across the board, and then someone to focus on conservation itself. So we can have kind of specialty roles and ensure that we're doing right by the state. And that's the kind of the focus and the vision, because again, I'm worried about the future. I'm worried about the future of the state with the pressures that we keep feeling. We're leading an agency that's going through a lot of change right now. So that's also very difficult and challenging. And again, trying to recruit first of all, trying to keep the conservationists that we have, then also trying to recruit and attract the next generation of conservationists that are going to come to work for FWC, because we need those. Sure. We need the next generation to get involved and take part. I struggle a little bit, like I said, with the economics of the state right now and the affordability of things. It's always kind of been that way, but it seems like it's more exasperated now with the inflation and the rising prices of homes and properties. And I just, we got to find a way to make sure we're staying, viable in the market of hiring and attracting, the next generation of conservation officers and biologists to come to work for FWC and to keep this, keep the tradition of protecting the state of Florida going. So that's my challenge. I've been on for 28 years, and, I don't, my window on the upside is probably not really long. I'd like to be here at least another 5 years, if not 5 to 8 at the max. But I realize in that time frame is going to go really quick, right? I mean, 5 years will go by fast, and ensuring that we're preparing the next level of leadership to kind of take over and keep the torch going, and keep things running in the right direction. Once I leave, for the future. And this is what I really care about. I want my kids to be able to keep enjoying the outdoors like they have, and I want their kids to be able to enjoy it one day as well. So, obviously, the vested interest is really strong. But I just share that, that unique love and passion for Florida's environment that so many people in the state have. We've got so many unique opportunities here in the state to enjoy such a vast, difference in our resources that are unique to Florida. So I just want to do all I can from the FWC standpoint to protect that. So
plenty of opportunities for growth, no doubt.
Yes.
And I look forward to hearing more on your journey. And listen, we really appreciate you meeting with us today. And as always, thanks for taking us in another step beyond the fire.
My pleasure. And anytime you'd like to have me back, just let me know. And I enjoyed it. Thank you so much. And thanks for what you do getting the word out. It's really important.
For sure. Yeah. Happy to do it. It's my sincere hope that all of you have been enjoying the show thus far. I welcome any comments, questions, or feedback you might have. You can reach out to me on my website at astepbeyondthefire.com. We've got some merchandise for sale that's still benefiting the Southern Fire Exchange and also helps us continue the mission that we have to share stories of conservation from the field. My wife and I are expecting our first baby. Really exciting time in life, and I had originally figured that I was just going to put the show on hold for the next few months. But I reached out to a friend of mine named Steve Miller, who you'll recall from a few episodes back, and he graciously agreed to host the show for the next 3 to 4 episodes, which should get us into March. Steve has got a lot of really great experience. He's been doing prescribed burning and has been involved in a lot of conservation work for a long time. He's a legend here in Florida, and he's out in the Midwest now. Really looking forward to hearing his experiences, and he's got a lot of connections, and I think that all of you will really enjoy a change in pace and getting to hear from him. So that's going to be upcoming in the new year. So I hope you all had a happy holiday, and I really appreciate each and every one of you, and hopefully this has been an engaging experience for all thus far. As we like to say on the fire line, keep one foot in the black.